Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk. He is Paul Dottino. Joining us in the Hack and Sack Meridian Health Podcast studio, keep getting better, is the Giants Director of Cinematography, Michael Becton.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Becton, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Now, for Giant fans that are at games, they might recognize this guy. He's the guy that's usually wearing a Giants hoodie and a hat on the sideline, behind the bench, filming the players. And I want to start here, Mike. Giants Life is premiering this week.
Yes.
You've been the master behind Giants Life since it was conceived. How many years has it been now?
13 years now.
13 years for
13
Giants Life.
years
There we go.
now, yes.
And last year, we didn't have a chance to do it because of Hard Knocks. We'll talk about that too. Talk about the amount of trust you've built up over the years with this regime, so that you get the type of access that us and all the fans crave, so that Giants Life is as good of a product as it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of where it starts. Joe and his staff have really welcomed us in from his first day. He kind of has a real understanding of how important access is. And, along with doing some other projects for the front office throughout the year, they've seen my ability as far as skill set. And they also have understood that I'm not trying to be intrusive, right? I have a philosophy with Giants Life, and it's inclusion without intrusion. I want to be a fly on the wall, and I think I've shown that over the years, but also especially with this regime.
Paul's the opposite. He wants to be as intrusive as possible. He's always noticed that he just gets in everyone's way, right, Paul?
Fair enough.
That's why he runs away from me on the sidelines.
That's why everybody runs away from you on the sidelines. It's not just me.
Michael, the rosters do have a great deal of turnover every year.
Sure.
So in addition to knowing the coaches in the front office and getting comfortable with them, you have to get comfortable with a new set of players quite often. How is that challenge kind of overcome when you first meet some of these new guys and kind of say, hey, look, I'm one of these guys. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever someone hears what you do, there's a connotation that comes with it. It's like, oh, that's a camera guy. You're going to be in my face. You're going to be in the way. I think the best thing that we do is we show how we use this footage, right? So John mentioned that I'm on the sidelines, I'm behind the bench, and some guys are hesitant to talk to the camera immediately, that first game or that first practice. Once they see a highlight tape that week and how it was utilized, they get excited. Now they start looking for my camera, right? So that's kind of how you get past that initial hesitancy from the guys, and just showing them how to use it and keeping that integrity there for what they provide.
So who are some of the biggest hams of the players that you've dealt with over the years?
Over the years, I'm going David Deal. Yeah, Deal used to give me such a hard time, man. But it's funny because once he retired, he was great. But but while he was playing, he was definitely giving us a hard time, and it was all a lot of fun, though.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right, you talk about not being intrusive.
Yeah.
There are a couple areas, and I'll start with the combine, where the rooms are not exactly large.
True.
And there's a lot of, and if people have watched Giants Live, they squeeze a lot of people into those rooms for some of these 15-minute meetings.
100%.
How are you not intrusive in that setting where everybody's intrusive? It's such a small area with so many people.
You got to look the part, right? Giants hoodie, hat. It's so funny because also, we downsized the camera size at this point, right? So what we use. So at moments, I'll just put the camera down. And as a prospect walks in or out, he, dabs me up and says, all right, coach. Because again, I look the part, right? So that's really how it starts, man. Yeah, so it's actually pretty easy.
All right, so how about the draft room? It's a much bigger venue, but a lot more people in there, and a lot more principals in there.
Yes.
Ownership's in there. Everyone that's the most important people in the organizations are in there. So how do you try to capture what you need to in there, but also not do anything where people are not going to act the way they would normally act if you weren't there?
I try to be a minimalist with the number of cameras we have. Typically I use 2 cameras kind of hidden and rigged up in the room so no one really sees them. And then I'm the 3rd camera. And then again, I'm just another body, right? The camera is an extension of my body. So it's not completely out of the norm. Like, it's not on the shoulder or anything like that. It's right here, handheld, so you can't even tell when I'm shooting. A lot of times the guys will say, I didn't even know you were recording because, I looked over and you didn't have your camera up. So, you try to be, as, like I said, a fly on the wall. And I'm also paying attention a lot to the conversations that are being had, the moments that are being had, because also people don't realize there's a lot of quietness to the draft room.
I was going to ask that.
It's not a lot of chatter. You don't hear a lot. So you really have to pay attention to who's speaking to who, and is that relevant to what I need.
And is it appropriate, I think.
And it is appropriate.
Because some stuff, obviously, is not going to get aired, and you know that ahead of time.
One of the most underrated things is because you don't actually hear some of the dialogue that's happening in the moment, you don't hear it until you get in the edit. Of course. So sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know I got that. Or, other times I'm like, okay, that's deleted. You know what I mean? So, there's, you really, the edit is the big part of it.
I have one more question on the logistics of getting everything captured.
Yeah.
GoPros are a relatively new technology. They've gotten more advanced as we've gotten along, but they've been around for a while. How do you use those? And for people that don't know GoPro cameras, they're these little square cameras that are battery powered. You don't have to have somebody operating them. They're just there, and they're so small people might not notice them.
Yep.
How have you utilized those to help improve and increase your access to even to the point where it's like 30 visits with players and you're not in there, but your cameras are?
100%. Like you said, GoPros, the technology has really grown with a number of these cameras, PTZ cameras and GoPros and things like that. But honestly, I control all 3, sometimes 4 cameras from my phone. I have one app that allows me to hit record. And again, I can be from outside the room. As long as I'm within range and Bluetooth range, I have them all synced up. So that way, also, when I get into the edit, they're all basically to the same time code.
So that takes a lot of the pressure off in terms of getting the money shot. Like, for example, Joe Shane's going to make the call to the first-round draft choice.
Yes.
You want to make sure you get his facial expression while he's making that
100%,
call.
100%.
And so if you've got multi-cams, you've got a better chance of knowing that you're going to get it.
100%. And that's speaking to the draft room, but you mentioned the 30 visits. I wasn't in the room for any 30 visit. I literally set up the 3 cameras, and I had the schedule and when the player was coming in, but then I just hit record from outside the room. So, and like you said, if I'm for the draft, actually, so obviously we made the first pick of Abdul, I would run downstairs, I'm doing some other things, my cameras are still recording. So the build up to the trade, I actually missed some of it because I was still doing some other things downstairs, but still had it, still had it recorded. So it helps.
What are the emotions like? Because this is what you do.
Yeah.
You are in the heartbeat of the entire operation, where the intensity, the pressure, the adrenaline's got to be at an all-time high.
It's fun. You see a side of this game that we love, from a completely different side. And the respect that I have for the process and those guys upstairs, it's incredible because as a fan, you really don't know this part of it. So it is a little intense, and again, because, it's fairly quiet, right? So you're not sure exactly what's going on, but it really is cool to be a part of and to see that. Like I always say, man, it would have been really cool to see, the 2005 Giants draft, with, I believe that was Tuck and those guys. Like to see behind the scenes of that would have been awesome, right? So you never know what draft class is going to be special.
How about the Eli draft in 04?
Anything, you know what I mean? Just to have been on a fly on the wall for those. Yeah. So like you never know which draft class currently is going to be that class, but to think that in a few years we can look back and say, oh, that was a really cool moment. That's, it's awesome.
And you don't know what moment's going to be cool because you don't know what's going to come in the future.
You have no idea. We went into this draft not knowing what was going to happen, right? So from a production standpoint, so you prepare for different scenarios and, see what happens.
And that's what makes it fun covering the draft too. All these guys, you know about them from college, but what they're going to be is a complete unknown, which is why the draft is so much fun. I want to get to the dating process in a second, but you kind of mentioned respecting the process. What is one thing, being around this draft process as closely as you are, that you think fans should understand about how these guys go about their business and work the process that maybe you don't think is appreciated enough, and through no fault of the fans a lot of the times because they don't see what you see,
For sure.
that they don't know, but you know that you think fans should know?
I think one of the things that I was really impressed with learning about over the years is that it really is a multi-year process, right? College football has changed. These guys are transfer portals and, you know, the COVID year and things like that.
NIL.
So, NIL, right? So, you know, you say, okay, this player's coming out of the draft this year, but he's been in college for 6 years. You know what I mean? Compared to someone who maybe just a sophomore or a junior or whatever it is.
There was a
There's
7-year
less tape.
player picked in the second round this year.
Exactly, right? So there's tape, there's film, there's you know, research on those guys. So these, you know, these scouts, obviously we know that these guys travel so much, and to see that process. Another thing that I was really impressed with, you know, the number of interviews that they do.
See, I kind of expected part of the answer, or maybe even a different answer, would have been you have a greater appreciation for how they have to adjust on the fly and literally audible, because there are so many unexpected things that can happen to a front office at any time.
100%. But I think that goes to any job. You know what I mean? Like, you never know what the next guy's thinking. So to see these guys handle that, but the amount of work that they do, they're prepared. You know, I will say that maybe fans aren't privy to that information of how prepared these guys are for those nights, for those draft nights. You're talking, like I said, years of research. So
I want to ask you about the editing process. You know, I learned how to edit in college. I quickly learned I did not want to edit because there's just so much sitting, like vlogging what you have is just so, I couldn't deal with it. How much of this process is for you just sitting there watching what you got, writing it down, and then figuring out how you want to put it together before you actually do the editing?
Hours. And especially with a episode like this, where, as you know, we have several tentpole events that I may attend and I may not attend. Right. You know, you and the crew went down to Senior Bowl and you went down to Shrine Bowl. I was not privy to those. So what those guys brought back footage wise, I had to go through it. And how does it, not only do you have to go through it, but how does it relate to the story that you're telling? Right. You know what I mean? And, you know, Combine, hours. I mean, I'm in those formal meetings literally for 4 to 5 days, you know, 4 hours on end. So you have to just go back to listening to what's there, but also, is it relevant to what you're editing?
You know, from an artist's perspective, and this all kind of goes into the editing situation too, there'll be times that you'll be telling the story, but then you're going to want to put some B-roll over something. Or sometimes it'll be a slow-mo shot that you'll want to have a guy at the Combine doing the 40. You have to think about those things as they're happening in advance, don't you? Because if 100%. You wait until the back end, you may not have that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, as storytellers, you know, I consider us all storytellers, you know, especially on the crew, you know, Charles Urban and Dominic Silva, they know the type of shots that are going to get the emotion out of the viewer. That's really what we're aiming for, right? That's why slow motion is so cool. You know what I mean? The dramatization of the draft. The draft is a very dramatic 3 days. So that's the type of thing that you're looking for. But then also, you know, okay, once we've picked a player, more than likely the energy needs to be brought up for the video. So now let's use some fast-paced things that will eventually get put into the video. So you think about the best features, pull out multiple emotions out of you as a viewer. So, you know, you're anxious, you're excited, you're happy. Oh man, if you're watching the right thing, you're sad. So we kind of look for those type of shots to then, you know, put into the edit.
Have you been in it? 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. And guys, again, Giants Life premiering this week, Giants.com, Giants YouTube channel, Giants app. Make sure you guys go check it out. When you are sitting there during the draft and you know, based on what you've done already in terms of your work, that you have this phenomenal moment from a meeting at the Combine with the player, are you sitting there just like, will you just please pick this guy? I know how good this is. I want to be able to use it.
I think I've always said words have power. The week leading up to this draft, I was like, man, it's got to be Abdul. It's got to be Abdul. I've got some content with this guy that is going to do really well. So, I had my favorites because I knew what I had to work with. And sometimes it works in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't.
Was it the same with the quarterbacks, by the way? Because I think all of us are trying to figure out who was. We all knew Cam Ward wasn't going to be there, right?
Yeah.
But who from that second group was going to be? And you're probably sitting there like you have your folders and stacks of footage for each guy, and you're like, all right, I don't know which one I'm going to have to use here, right?
100%. And when you're picking this, or when you pick that high in the draft, thankfully there's a smaller pool to deal with, right? Yeah. But we've had years where we're picking in the 20s, and it's like, okay, I have no idea where this is going, right?
Yeah, like even the Deontay Banks year. I mean, we were picking in the middle of the first round. It could have been even 8 guys.
100%. And even with that year, we lucked up because we actually attended, as a crew, we attended Maryland's Pro Day.
That's right.
It was just one of the ones that we picked.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it worked out in our favor.
You get lucky sometimes.
You definitely
Wait.
get lucky
You mean
sometimes.
Joe's not telling you ahead of time who we're drafting to go there?
No,
I didn't think so.
Not a chance. I picked it because I went to school in Maryland. So I was like, at least I can go back down there and get some good food.
That was a fun trip.
And it was a fun trip. Yeah, exactly. So, but sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But, you really do keep your fingers crossed for those prospects that you have the most content with, because that's what you're trying to offer the fans is access.
Pierce,
sure.
So Pierce, what do you think? Weekly spot for Becton now?
I am now returning to behind the camera. I will see you guys in 2026 Giants life. But no, I hope everybody tunes in, man.
Do you have any highlights that you want to share with the fans that they should really look forward to, that you're really excited about sharing?
This was actually the first year that we filmed the 30 visits. So I think fans being able to see that side of it will be really cool. Really, really cool. And I know they got a glimpse of it in Hard Knocks, but we expanded on it, I feel like a little bit more. So I think that'll be a great access point for people.
And by the way, Paul and I have not seen any of this either. We're looking forward to seeing it too.
I mean, I was kind of hoping you'd give us a sneak preview, but I guess that's not coming.
You got to wait like everybody else.
Okay.
Mike, this is fun, man. Good stuff.
Appreciate it.
And dude, keep up the good work. All the great stuff, the sideline stuff, the highlights, Giants life. This guy's either shot it or edited or directed the people that have. So Mike's been here since 2009 when he interned here.
Yeah.
My first year is 2007. We've been here a real long time. He does a fantastic job. And thanks for being with us.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
And that's Michael Becton, the Giants Director of Cinematography. Sorry for the little pause there, folks. We had to restart our YouTube stream for those of you on YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Hackensack, or the studio rather, is presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you. We recorded that Michael Becton interview yesterday. That's why we're wearing different clothes today.
Yes. Good thing. After all the excitement we had to endure last night.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure endure is the right word, but enjoy.
Enjoy and endure both, because, boy, it really sucked a lot of energy to get through these first 2 games.
Still had to pinch myself this morning that actually happened, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But so getting back to the topic of hand, and we'll get to that later in the show. The Giants Live episode, Pearson, is up. It's up on the Giants YouTube channel, Giants app, Giants.com. Hopefully a lot of you folks have watched it. Paul and I have had a chance to watch it as well. We're going to open up the phones and take your calls at 201-939-4513 right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. Paul, so both of us watched Giants Live. Really good behind-the-scenes stuff in there on the draft process. As Mike mentioned in our interview with him, the stuff with the 30 visits is the cool stuff to me, behind-the-scenes stuff. I don't think there's anything that, blew me away like, oh, that really surprised me. I can't believe that. I just think, Abdul Carter comes off as the type of guy and player that we talked about, where he's just very serious and he's all about football. He wanted to be with the Giants. This is where he got to, and he is just very serious about being a very good football player. And I thought the thing that interested me the most was talking about the off-ball versus edge playing and which way you're going to go, using them at 4 or 5 different spots. That's the stuff that kind of caught my interest the most from the 30 visit.
I think the stuff with him and his family.
That was good too.
His dad talked about, making small-time money at a car wash just to be able to feed his family. And
he also mentioned that he was incarcerated, right? Prior to that, right?
It was. Did he say homeless too? I can't remember if that word came into play or not. It was hard to listen to it while the traffic was passing by me. I listened to it on my walk. So, but here's my point. My point is, it's clear that he is very well grounded and has a tremendous foundation in terms of values, and his parents brought him up the right way. They taught him to appreciate everything that he gets and to work hard for everything he gets. That's something that you can ingrain in someone's character very early on, and usually they will take it with them through life. Not always, but usually they will. So when I saw Abdul Carter when he first came here after the draft, and I saw the business-like approach and the very calm, assertive demeanor, almost like an assassin on the field, the way he conducts himself. And then when I saw that clip with the family, I said, I get it now. I get it. He's not overindulgent. He's not overly bubbly. He's not all about fame and fortune. And that's not to say he doesn't enjoy it. Who doesn't? But this guy is well-grounded.
Yeah, you can tell religion is a big part of what their family is about as well. So, yeah, look, I'm with you. And I just think you could tell how excited Brian Dable was, how excited Joe Shane was. And it makes you wonder, too. And, fans kind of, we don't really know. And I was hoping this was going to be in the episode, but it wasn't. If both Hunter and Carter were there, who they would select. And the good, but in all seriousness, like the good thing about it is that, I mean, I'm sure the Giants had the conversation, but they probably knew they didn't have to take the conversation that seriously because they knew that was never going to be a problem that was posed to them once you got to the, last few weeks of the draft and you knew Cleveland wasn't taking a quarterback there, not named Cam Ward at 2. You knew that you weren't going to have to choose between Hunter or Carter. I do wonder, I would have liked to sit in that meeting and listen to that debate go down as to who they would have taken, Carter or Hunter, when it got there, because I don't think we've been told that in any pressers or anything, right? No.
Now, it is my opinion after watching the video, though, that, again, you may not have seen it the same way I did.
It feels like it was Carter.
It feels like, to me, they knew Hunter was going at 2, even though Cleveland was trading out.
Yes, I
Joe
agree.
at one point says, we don't know who it's going to be, but they're pretty sure Hunter's going to be number 2.
And they seemed very happy when he was.
Now, I don't know.
And again, that's not I'm sure they would have been very happy with Travis Hunter, too, by the way. But they seemed quite pleased that Abdul Carter was the guy left for them at number 3.
Now, to be frank, I'm kind of curious who else Joe thought might have been a potential trade partner for Cleveland other than Jacksonville. Because he said he didn't know it was going to be Jacksonville.
Yeah,
he just knew pretty much they were going to trade out and that Hunter was going to be the guy. Lord only knows what clues he had, who it was going to be, but he said he didn't know it was Jacksonville in the video. So anyway, somehow, someway, they figured Hunter was gone, and so Carter was the fait accompli number 3, and they were all the more happy to take him.
Yeah, by the way, the phone lines are open at 201-939-4513. Fans got a good taste of Charlie Bolin. He was like probably, besides Carter, he was probably said the second most words in the episode, I would imagine, right?
He did.
Yeah, he was great.
He did.
And I've told you guys, Charlie's a really good dude. He's a good coach. I think he's going to love coaching him up over the course of the year. So, look, it's going to be fun having Abdul Carter in the building. I'm really looking forward to part 2 of Giants Life when they talk about the Jackson Dart acquisition and everything that goes into it. Again, I've not seen it yet. It's going to be fun to see it. I want to know how the trade thing went down. Like, are there going to be discussions in there about, how they decided which team they want to trade up to, when they wanted to trade up to, how much they were willing to give up. Based on some of the reporting we've seen, a prerequisite of that trade was that they were not trading 65.
Right.
Which tells me, by the way, that they had discipline.
Yes.
Because it would have been easy to say, well, we need a quarterback. We're going to do whatever we can to get one, even if that means trading 65. It doesn't, again, this is not based on anything we were told or Joe Shane has said or that he was even in Giants Life because we haven't watched that second part yet. But I think Albert Breer had it in one of his columns, if I recall. And Albert's usually really good with his information. He's usually right on with this sort of stuff. That the prerequisite of getting those trades done was that they were not going to trade 65.
Well, we kind of prepared fans for that, if you go back to a number of our shows going into the draft, how many times did we say you don't want to overpay, you don't want to force, and furthermore, that 65 is going to be right in the beef of the draft.
Hey, look, we talked about it. It was picks
We
like
did.
50 to 100 where you're going to have the best picks in this draft, and they ended up getting a guy that we both thought was going to be a top 50 pick that slid into that meat of the draft. And that's what you're looking for, right? You're hoping when you get the pick at any point during the draft, you look down and your choice is obvious. And you're like, oh, I have to pick that guy. You know, it's not even like a position you're worried about. You're just like, oh, my God, that guy's sticking out like a sore thumb. That's what you want. And they were fortunate enough to have that with Darius Alexander at 65. If you don't have that pick, he's not getting the 99, folks.
You know, from all of the indications that we had and we tried to sketch out for you in our minds, it just seems as though that was the most logical scenario, and it played out exactly that way for Joe. He was thinking along the same lines too.
Now,
and it really worked out.
And to the point, though, is that we thought it would be difficult for them to get into the 20s without giving up 65. And the way they did it was that they dug into next year's class.
Right. Because we also talked about that too.
Right.
You don't want to not only give up too much this year, but you did not want to necessarily give up a 1 or a 2 next season. And they didn't. They gave up a 3.
Correct.
So that was good.
And that 3 next year, you know, will be somewhere between pick, 65 and 90.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that area. So
Let me ask you this.
yes.
Of all the things that Abdul Carter said or did in the Giants' life that we just saw this morning, was there one thing that you really liked? There was one item for me that I was really happy to hear.
The one item I liked, and I wonder if it's the same one as yours because we haven't talked about
No,
this.
that's why I'm asking you.
Was when Charlie Bullen drew on the board and he says, okay, you get to rush the guard, the tackle, and the center. Do you think you can handle playing all 5 spots? And he goes, do you want to give me more?
That was great.
That's what I liked.
I enjoyed that. The one that was most telling for me was when they asked him in the meeting at the Combine about his rookie goals.
Ooh, that was a good one, too.
And he goes,
I'm with you.
I don't have any yet. I'm not a rookie yet. We'll see after I get to be a rookie what my goals are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, this guy knows he's going to be a top 3 pick in the draft, but he's not thinking ahead.
And he also seemed to have a team attitude, too, in that Combine meeting. Like, he was not, you hear about some of these meetings with certain players, and it's like, I'm a star, treat me like one. You did not get that sense at all with him talking.
And this is why you hear all the time from the GMs and the coaches that these personal meetings are so critical.
Yeah, I know.
Because you can't get that stuff otherwise.
And there were some rumblings out there in draft media that the off-the-field stuff with him wasn't pristine and all that stuff. But personality-wise, there's nothing where I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. He seems like a pretty intense, football-focused type of kid.
He means business.
Yeah,
the guy eats and sleeps ball. And, I don't, that was the other comment, right? He was asked, what do you like least
that was a good
about
one,
football?
too.
And he goes, nothing. I love football. There's nothing.
All right. We're going to get to close in a second. Pearson, pay attention to this. Paul, what's the thing you like least about football?
When the rivalry games wind up on the short end of the stick. I get very, very, very physically ill and upset when those stinking people down the turnpike beat the Giants.
Take a Giants loss out of the equation. What do you like least about football?
The offseason. The offseason. It's filled with rumors, gossip, clickbait, and just all kinds of hypotheticals. I don't like that at all.
Do you want to know what mine is?
Sure.
Games on holidays.
Fair enough.
When I was a fan and I was a kid, I love watching football on Thanksgiving. You know what I don't like now? Working football on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. You know what I don't like? Working football games on Christmas. I could do without that.
That's fair. Well,
now again, that's part of it being a job for me, but that's something that I could do without.
I will give you something along those lines that has changed for me as a kid growing up. Monday Night Football, Dad and Mom would say I could stay up till halftime. And I got to see Howard Cosell's halftime highlights, which was a very big deal in those days, right?
Yeah, because there was no highlight. You couldn't find highlights anywhere else.
No, there was no ESPN.
No, all you had was George Michael's Sports Machine on Sunday night.
Yeah,
like people laugh. No, that's why George Michael's Sports Machine was the best. It was actually national highlights.
That and This Week in Football which was syndicated. It was on WPIX Channel 11 here in New York.
Oh, I didn't know about that show.
Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire would be on 11:30 on Friday night on Channel 11.
So it was basically the same as This Week in Baseball, except This Week in Football.
Correct.
Well, Mel
Correct.
Allen did This Week
And
in Baseball.
it was the only way, because the Giants would wear their blue jerseys at Yankee Stadium at home or at the Yale Bowl at home, and the whites on the road, right? Unless they were
So
playing
that
Dallas.
would be the only time you would see them in their white jerseys.
Correct. No, in their blues, because the games were blacked out. In the early 70s, the home games were blacked out. You could not watch them on Channel 2.
I thought your parents had tickets. That's why I thought you went to the games.
No.
They didn't have tickets then.
No, they did not have tickets
I got
then.
you. I got you.
You know, my dad didn't get his tickets until after Giant Stadium was built.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So the Giants would play home games in the early 70s when the blackout rule was in play, and the only time I'd seen them in their blue jerseys on TV on Channel 2 was when they were on the road at Dallas usually.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always beg my parents, and because Friday was not a school night, right, they would let me stay up. If they knew the Giants had played at home the weekend before, they'd let me stay up till Friday at 11:30 so I could get that 90-second clip of highlights of the Giants game the previous week at Yankee Stadium, and I could see Fran Tarkenton, throwing to Bob Tucker in the blue jerseys.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool.
I like
it
that.
is cool.
That's
But
pretty
you
good.
see,
It just shows you for the kids today how you had to hunt for like highlights and stuff like that.
the thirst to see the Giants in their blues was everlasting. You couldn't quench it because there was nowhere to go.
And just to give another angle of this, so before the internet, and we'll get to your calls. We lost Colin. All right, Colin, if you call back, we'll get right back up. Back in the early 90s, it wasn't even called fantasy football. It was called rotisserie football.
Correct.
And the only way you could play is that you had to, in the morning, on Monday morning, pick up the USA Today.
Yes.
And they had the box scores from all the NFL games. And sometimes you had to wait till Tuesday if it was an early
Now, I
edition.
didn't play this, but I'm aware of what you're saying.
And you would have to literally, by hand, go through each box score and tally your player scores.
Yeah.
And that's how you would play rotisserie football in the early 90s.
All of these things were so primitive, folks. I know a lot of you younger
true.
folks don't get that. But the point I was going to make about your working is that, so when I was a kid, if the Giants were on Monday Night Football, even though they usually didn't do very well in those days, obviously, it was still a big thrill to be able to stay up till halftime to watch them. And I thought that was exciting. That was a big deal.
Now you hate night games.
Now night games are... They're a bit of an imposition.
That's fine. All right.
Because we worked them.
So I found a good one.
You did.
You don't like night games.
The primetime games in my later years, as I've now worked them, there are two reasons I don't like them. It totally throws off my body schedule. I'm so messed up, John. You know how it is. It throws our entire week into a tizzy. I feel like I'm on a merry-go-round from the time they kick it off on Sunday or Monday night. It's just a messed up deal. The other part is, in recent years, the Giants have done really poorly in prime time.
And we've talked about why, obviously.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's get to the calls, folks. 201-939-4513. Pierce, we got a blinking red light on that camera. I'm not sure what that means, but I don't know if the battery's going to die or what, but you might want to check that. Blinking red light's usually bad. Let's go to Nick in Brooklyn. Nick, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call.
Hi.
What's up?
Quick question. I remember last season around this time, there was talk about Jaden Daniels using virtual reality hardware and software, both in college and with the Commanders, to kind of get extra mental reps and see the game. I was just curious if you guys knew if the Giants were looking into that for someone like Dart, who might not get as many physical reps, or if the league in general is looking into that fact.
I know Daniel Jones did use that a little bit. I talked to them about that, and it was in use a bit. I don't know how extensively or in what way, but I know the technology is present in the building as far as I know, and that DJ had used it for certain things. The extent of which and the details of it, I don't know. But Daniel did mention that to me once or twice, that it is something that he had used before. It's around.
I was under the impression it was just like they toyed with it as an experiment.
Like I'm saying, I have no idea. All I know is that at some point Daniel had the headset on his head. Because when that came out last year, I asked him, Daniel, like, have you done this before? He said, yeah, I've done it before. So he did it when he was with the Giants. And again, I don't know what the extent of that usage is.
I don't believe it's part of their regular process right now, but maybe that'll change.
You know what? We're going to have the assistant coaches during minicamp. Maybe we'll ask that question for you. We'll
find out.
We'll find that out for you, Nick.
would be great. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Nick. Did he have a second question?
I don't think so. He's just said thank you.
No, I know, but I thought he might have asked the second part of the question when
I don't know.
when opened. Sorry. My bad, Nick. All right, let's go to Lawrence in Florida. He's up next. We have open lines, by the way, folks. Give us a call. Lawrence, what's up?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Hello.
What's up?
And first, I just want to ask a question. Remember about 2 years ago, OCU Menorah discovered some big offensive tackle. They were working with him. Is he still around?
Mubateka.
Yeah, he lasted, 6 weeks, and then he got let go. He picked up in a couple other organizations. I think
Bears?
actually he came back to the Giants maybe for a cup of coffee.
Was it the Bears?
Yeah. And Batica,
Ray. It was
right?
Ray.
Mbatica.
Ray. Yeah, Ray was I think his first name.
Roy Mbatica.
Roy.
Mbatica.
Very good, Pearson. Roy.
Let's
Okay.
see.
I think he was only practice squad though. I don't think he ever made it to a 53.
I'm just wondering.
It looks like he was signed to a futures contract. No, but I don't believe he's on an NFL roster right now from what I see.
Okay, and I'm glad the Giants, got a lot of defensive players this year because the one thing that bugs me is that phrase, "the bend don't break." I mean, half the time they're bending down to the 5-yard line. And I wanted that to stop because it can't take it when the first down they stop them, second down they stop them, third no matter what. If it's 15 yards, the guy runs out for a pass, turns around, it's a 16-yard completion first down. So that has to come to an end.
Well, Lawrence, here's the thing. The point of the bend but don't break defense is that you don't want to allow big plays and quick scores.
Right.
The point isn't to just allow first downs willy-nilly. The point is to make the other team matriculate the ball down the field in a very slow, steady fashion so that when you get to the 20, your red zone defense is good enough to keep them out of the end zone. You're forcing the field goals. But the bigger part of the plan is that you make them run so many plays to get there. Eventually, they're going to make a mistake. They're going to throw an interception. They're going to fumble. Or your pass rush is going to get home. And look, once you get a sack or there's an offensive holding penalty, if you look at the analytics of it, if you get a sack on a possession, the chance of the other team scoring a touchdown becomes infinitesimally small. It's like under 10%, I think. So the goal is to prevent the big chunk plays to make them have long, sustained drives so they eventually make a mistake. And if they don't, your red zone defense is good enough to hold them to 3. That's the whole point of the bend but don't break defense.
I don't remember the numbers, but John, you can back me up on this. In the 2022 playoff season, the bend but don't break in the red zone was incredibly effective. They gave up a lot of yards between the 20s and between the 30s, but they kept teams out once they got into the red zone. And on the flip side, the Giants' offense was terrific in the red zone. It resulted in a playoff appearance. So don't unilaterally trash the bend but don't break mentality. It actually can work.
Okay, but I also had a suggestion for the show during the slow time of the period coming up.
Yeah.
You might say no right off the bat, but I'm thinking maybe it would be a good idea maybe once a week you have one of your celebrity callers, your big-time callers sit in, be like a co-host with you guys. And it might be fun, and to be a Giant fan, during these hard times, let's face it, you got to have a sense of humor about it, or else you give yourself a nervous breakdown. And the first celebrity co-host with you guys should be Wilson. Then take it from there. So that was just a little idea I had. It might be fun, just get the fan on the street point of view.
Lawrence, I appreciate the call. I wonder if you coordinate this because the next person on the line is Wilson in Roxbury.
Yeah.
I'm sure Wilson loves that idea. Wilson, what's going on?
Johnny, Paulie, hey, how can I listen, that's a high bar for me to, who is that guy that just called?
That would be Lawrence. I live in Florida. Is that where you're from? Florida?
Wait a minute. Are you sure that wasn't your next door neighbor?
Hey, what can I tell you? Hey, listen,
I think
Johnny.
Lawrence is sitting next to you in your living room right now.
There you go.
Oh, my. Hey, Johnny, I don't know how good I will look between you and Paulie, but, geez, that's a great idea. It might be the craziest idea I ever heard. But listen, Johnny, I will never embarrass you.
Now, Wilson, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure if the Giants legal department is going to be willing to go out on a cliff and allow that sort of thing. So
I know.
I am going to yield to the lawyers on that one.
Just know, Wilson, you are entitled to get your 10 minutes of fame every time you call in.
Of course.
Paulie, listen, I don't take things seriously. That's why I guess, I like calling. I like to say what I think, Paulie. Sometimes you don't like it, and sometimes you do, but I love you, right?
We're
So,
glad to have you. Trust me, because listeners are what make the program work. If you guys stop listening and we have 0 clicks on the program, we don't do a program.
And we want opposing opinions. Like you guys call in with a lot of times. Wilson, I'm being completely honest. You guys will call in. Sometimes it's opinions you disagree with.
For that, Johnny.
Right, but you guys will give us some different ways to maybe think about things because we're so close to it here that we think about things a certain way. You guys. I think there's value, Wilson, to seeing it from a fan perspective. The old expression, seeing the forest from the trees.
Yeah.
It gives a different perspective for us to think about.
Or your comment gives us the opportunity to explain something that maybe we had not thought to explain.
Correct.
Okay, but I try to have my own opinion, but I try to do it with utmost respect, So
we understand.
No, Wilson, you must be thrilled. You are such a connoisseur of the national media. They've been very complimentary of the Giants draft. You must be like on cloud 9. Everyone's been like giving the Giants A grades on their draft. You must be flying right now.
I was gonna start with that. So, Johnny, listen. I know we the Giants are the best team. We win the draft every year, and then we win 3 games. So maybe we should change it. We should change it up a little. I'm just gonna tell you something, Paulie. How funny this is, right? Dave Gettleman got killed for drafting Daniel Jones 6th overall. Yet, to me, and Joe Shane, to me, overreached maybe a second rounder, maybe a third round quarterback he picked in the first round. And to me, now that is my question to you. What is now the goal of the season? Because in year 4 of a new regime like Brian Dable and Joe Shane, we don't want to hear, we play hard, we in close games. That's maybe for year 1, year 2. In year 4, I want to hear playoffs, maybe second round. But what is the goal now?
To win as many games as they can, Wilson.
See this kid? What?
Wilson, the game, as Paul just said, the goal is to win as many games as you can, and behind the scenes, develop Jackson Dart. That's what you're trying to do.
That's it.
Johnny, listen. Listen, I want to eat my words. Every time I say something negative, I don't want it to be true. I'm just telling you what I think.
Okay.
Like, if we're 2-5, callers like myself are going to be calling for this kid, Johnny. You know that.
No, I know, but Wilson, we've warned people ahead of time that they shouldn't be. Everyone I've talked to, they've said the earliest you should be talking about this is Halloween, and Thanksgiving is a more logical time to talk about it.
Okay, Johnny. Okay, but let's just play with me. Let's just say we're 2-5. I don't want to be 2-5. Hopefully, we're 5-2. I want to win.
No, that's fine. No, Wilson, I got you. It's a fair question. What's your question?
So where do you want to go?
But if we're 2-5, right? Then we have two different opposites here. We have John Mara saying, "I don't want to be embarrassed anymore and at home. I want to be games. I want to be relevant in December." You got that on this side of the equation. Mm-hmm. Then on the other side, you 2-5. You just drafted a quarterback in the first round. Fans want to see it. So what about if you only win 5 games? What happens at the end of the season?
Wilson, time out. No, I got to stop you there. I got to stop you.
Why?
They did not draft the quarterback in the top 10. They drafted him with a trade for pick number 25, which means fans should not be foaming at the mouth, itching to get him in there.
And Wilson, remember, even though it's a first-round pick, at pick 25, all
Johnny,
the players with first-round grades are off the board.
I know exactly what you're saying, but Paulie, you know how fans are. If we having a horrible season, we want to see the new thing.
No.
You know that.
But we're trying to help you be logical.
No, not be logical. Wilson, what we're trying to do is, you're right. Fans are going to call up and ask for that. Paul and I are arguing that. That's what's going to happen. You're absolutely right. No argument. But we're trying to explain to you the way the team's looking at it. And again, I think this is a perfect example of what we talked about at the start of your call, right? You mentioned, you're for the regime. You're looking for major progress. And from a fan's perspective, I totally understand that. I get the perspective there.
Right.
That's not the way Joe Shane and Brian Dable, I think, even think about it. All they can
Johnny,
think of.
I know that, Johnny, but that's like.
Wilson, just let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. All you can do, you can't wish cast yourself into a situation you're not in. All you can do is do the best you can and formulate the best plan you can based on the realistic options in front of you. That's all you can do. They can't go back in time and change the Daniel Jones decision. They can't go back in time and change any moves they made 2 or 3 years ago. They are where they are, okay? So once you accept that and you have an honest conversation with yourself as to what your best options are in the current situation, you make the best decisions you can for the organization based on where they are right now. And that's what they're going to do. And by the way, you said 7 games. That's around Halloween. You get through 7 games, you're at the end of October. So you're getting close to the area where I think you even start considering it. But look, this is going to be on Brian Dable and Shea Tierney and Mike Kafka deciding on where Jackson Dart is. That's a huge part of this. We're not going to know that.
It's the biggest part.
That is the only part you should worry about.
Bingo.
If they think he's ready and he can help, they'll put him in. If they believe that Russell Wilson, and by the way, the other thing, Wilson, let's say they're 2-5 and Russell Wilson's the starter. Maybe they decide to give Jameis Winston a chance for a few games, and that buys them more time until Jackson Dart is ready.
If they do that, Johnny, the Salacaras of the world, the BTs of the world.
Who cares?
It'll be 24.
Who cares?
No, but Wilson, you
outside noise.
In the
Wilson.
building, you have to make the best decision for the team. And if they don't think,
you look at it from your perspective, but the fans' perspective, Johnny.
The fans need to
be out of it by Halloween
Wilson,
again.
Wilson.
No, but neither do the Giants, Wilson. But playing a kid that's not ready is not going to change that. It might psychologically
damage him.
Make people happy. And Wilson, appreciate the call. It might make people happy on the outside because psychologically they're seeing a young player. But if it's not going to help you win games, and it's not going to help the development of the young quarterback because he's not ready to succeed in this environment.
Exactly.
What are you actually achieving from an organizational perspective besides making people on the outside that are rooting for your team happy?
Oh, and they won't be happy if that very move damages your young rookie quarterback.
Or he gets the snot beat out of him. Now, that's not me saying, guys, that I want to have Dart sit the whole year. Look, you might get to the point where you want to play in the last 3 or 4 games to get in some work. That's fine. A 3 or 4 game stretch is not going to psychologically damage your quarterback. You could psychologically damage your quarterback by having him get hammered for 12 games. We've seen that.
That's a lot of damage.
We've seen guys get shell-shocked before. Some guys can get through it. Look, if Eli Manning wasn't as mentally tough as he was, he could have been shell-shocked from that first year he took the field.
He could have been.
He got the snot beat out of him that year. He got obliterated by teams. It was bad.
Tom knew he was tough enough.
Right. And I think he knew he could handle it. Can Dart handle it? And is he ready to go? That's the only thing that's going to matter when you go and make that decision. And folks, I hate to tell you this because I'm going to have to repeat it, I know, 1,000,000 times between now and November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to know the answer to that question. I don't care what you see in preseason games. I don't care what we see at practice. None of that matters. It's what the coaches are seeing once the regular season starts, in the meeting rooms, whatever work they can get him on the field that we're not privy to, how they think he's mentally handling everything. You can tell if a player's swimming.
Yes.
And whether or not he's able to float. Or if you drop him in the pool, is he going to stay up top above the water? Or is it going to be like he has 2 10-pound weights, or not even 10, 2 50-pound weights tied to his legs, and he's going to get dragged to the bottom of your pool? Like, the coaches are going to have a feel for that. Paul, we are not.
Correct. You trade back into the first round to make a move for a young developmental quarterback who's going to have a fifth-year option. Given those situations and circumstances that are involved with the timeline of his potential progress, your only priority has to be what is in his best interests.
Which is therefore in the best interest of the franchise.
And that pays the franchise back.
Correct.
If you do not, and you do something that is against common sense and against the preparation of this young kid, you will not only damage him, you will damage your franchise. That's it. And no matter what the fans think, Wilson, no matter what you think, it doesn't matter.
Remember, they did not pick him at 3. I know some people have said, well, if you liked him at 27, or what was it, 25, 24, they traded 25, they traded up to, right? 25?
25.
If you like him at 25, just pick him at 3. No, that's not how this works, folks.
Nope.
That's not how this works. The 25th pick in the first round is valued completely differently than the 3rd pick in the first round.
Look,
It's almost the difference between like a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. It's a big, big difference.
I want you to think about this for a second. Let's hit the rewind button just a little bit and think about this. Joe Schoen signed 2 veteran quarterbacks, and there were 2 reasons why he did that. He got Wilson and Winston, A, because he wants to have the best chance he can to have wins this year. So he's got a veteran backup who's won some games in this league before, so that if something happens to Wilson, he still has a chance to compete. That's the first reason he did it. The second reason he did it is that he does not want Brian Daboll to have to prematurely rush the potential future quarterback who he was hoping he might get onto the field. If Russell Wilson quarterbacks this team to a 1-7 start, chances are very strong that Jameis Winston's going to be the next starter, and chances are they will not put Dart into that starting lineup unless he is absolutely positively ready to take on that challenge.
They might think he's ready to go.
That's the only chance.
But we're not going to know. And that's what, guys.
Daboll's the only one who's going to know that.
Or Tierney and Kafka.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that are going to know.
That's it. Nobody else.
And guys, we're going to have to trust him on this. There's nothing else we can do here. I don't know what's happening in regular season practices. I don't know what's happening in the quarterback's room. We are not going to know. I'm warning you right now. You might call up and say you want him to start. We're going to tell you, you got to yield to Dabes and his staff here, because they're the only ones that are going to know.
Look,
because again, what they do in some 3rd preseason game against a bunch of 3rd stringers that are playing vanilla defenses doesn't mean anything.
What did Charlie Weiss just tell us the other day on the show? You redshirt the quarterback for the first year. That's the preferred way to go.
What did Bill Polian tell us on Big Blue Kickoff Live 2 weeks ago? No rookie quarterback's ready to play his first year.
Okay? So get it through your head, Wilson, and every fan out there. You're much better off to lower your expectations and assume a redshirt year for Jackson Dart. If by some chance circumstances work out that he is ready and they have an opportunity to insert him, well, then that's a pleasant surprise and good for him, and everybody hopes he does well. But don't set your expectations for that. Set them for a redshirt season.
And Phil Simms said that too. I forget, what was the guest we had, Pearson? He was going through the quarterbacks, and like Milroe was like a 2-year red shirt, and then he went to somebody else that's a 1-year red shirt.
Wasn't it Matt Sims?
Chris Sims?
Chris Sims.
It might have been. It was Chris Sims. It was Chris Sims. You're right. It was Chris Sims. And he said he thought that group was a 1-year red shirt. The only guy that wasn't a red shirt guy in this draft was Cam Ward.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
Everyone else was at least a 1-year red shirt, and Milroe was a 2-year red shirt. And I have Dan Orlovsky coming up on the Giants Huddle, I think next week. I recorded him already. Dan was awesome. Talking about Jackson Dart. And he said, look, and I said, so Dan, what do you think? Shouldn't even talk about this until you start putting masks on for trick-or-treating? He goes, I want to eat some turkey first. So he was thinking Halloween. He was thinking December. Because he has a couple great answers about how you develop a quarterback in a room as a young guy that's been in the league.
That runs next week?
Yeah, that'll run next week. So, and Chase Daniel was great too about how a young quarterback develops in a room. And Kurt Warner was too, because Kurt Warner was a young quarterback in this league also. So all 3 of those guys, watch them. They're fantastic. All right, let's wrap up the show with Fabian in Manhattan. Fabian, what's up?
Hey guys, thanks for taking the call.
What's up?
I called to talk about Illuminor, but a quick take on Wilson's point.
Yep.
For me, it's about like projection, right? I don't think we're getting to that point where we're 2-5 or 1-7 this year because what people don't really talk about a lot is Russell Wilson. He protects the ball, and now our defense, if they play how they should, I don't see us being in that situation. But like worst comes to worst, you have to project the future, right? Because now you're a losing record, and this regime was in the hot seat last season, so presumably they're gone if we're 1-7,
No, Fabian, I hear what you're saying, but you also don't look at the schedule. We don't know what the schedule is going to look like the first 7 or 8 games either.
No idea.
And until we see that in a week, we'll have to wait and see.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, so just saying, if we have that many losses, you can say that this regime is gone, and then it's about the draft next year. We have a high pick next year. If you're sitting in the draft, you haven't seen Jackson Dart play, and you have one of the top prospects available. Like, what do? You're putting yourself in a bad predicament if you haven't seen him play at all.
No, Fabian, look, Fabian, here's the bottom line. We don't know what the situation is going to be, who's going to be around, who's not. We're not going to speculate about that. But if you're sitting there next year and Jackson Dart either had, honestly, Fabian, either played 3 or 4 games or haven't played at all, there's really no difference to me for that. Like, I'm not going to pull much out of that at all. If you're sitting there at the top of the draft, you think there's an elite quarterback there and you don't have to trade up to get one, you pick one anyway. That's what you do. It's that important of a position.
Okay.
So,
Fabian, this is why when John asked me, what do I hate about the offseason? I hate these miserable, disgusting, ridiculous hypotheticals.
All right, Fabian.
Nothing makes me more angry than
Fabian,
to talk about hypotheticals.
what's your quickie on Illuminor real quick?
Right. Well, just in that bad hypothetical, it just sucks for Dart if he never plays, and then we pick a quarterback ahead of him.
No, it does.
Illuminor, I think it's ironic because I think it was the plan when we signed him. It was for him to play guard, even though he's versatile and we knew he could play other positions. But I think like there's so much value. Like right now, if there even is one available, and I know we don't have much cap space, but if we were to get a starting right tackle, and you have Illuminor play right guard, there's so much value to that because now either tackle gets hurt, he goes to tackle, and now you have a starting guard and Van Roten come in ahead of him. Or if your center gets hurt, Van Roten could play center.
No, it's a good point.
I think there's just so much value in having him at guard, and that's the one thing about the offseason I like that we didn't. I don't like that we didn't do.
Not Fabian, appreciate the call. And I think the problem is that tackles are expensive. You're not going to find a tackle that you get on a good amount of money that's better than Illuminor. Like, it's going to cost... Dude, a guy that never started or was a career backup with the 49ers got almost $15 million a year in the offseason.
To be fair, Illuminor was really good value.
No, he is really good value.
And to your point, to get somebody upgraded from him is going to cost you a whole lot more money.
All right, we got to wrap up here. It'll be Dottino and Sitak tomorrow. Rookie Minicamp is tomorrow.
Yes, sir. So we're going to be later.
Yeah, thank you. 2:30 tomorrow. Make sure you check it out. That we said 2:30, right?
Yes, you did.
Decided on 2:30 tomorrow. As we recap rookie minicamp, guys, there's not going to be a ton with I think the drafted players. Brian Dable was clear about that at the press conference after the draft. So just don't get your hopes up. But we will have all the coverage for you right here. Before we say goodbye, though, we have a wellness check. Wellness check. Pearson Butler, are we okay?
No.
You're not okay?
No.
Talk to us. Can you?
I'm upset. I hate how the Celtics are playing. They haven't played like this in 3 years. And because I used to have these collapses all the time, and it was so frustrating, and now they're doing it against your team, which is frustrating. But it's not over yet.
No, it is not over yet.
This is actually concerning to me because they're supposed to be playing Game 3 at the Garden on Saturday, but on the basis that the Celtics keep missing everything, they might not even make their plane flight.
Oh, gosh. You can't help yourself.
Just saying.
It wasn't even that good.
No, it wasn't. So I will just say this, kind of to you, but mostly to Knicks fans in general. It's a long way to go, folks.
I know.
A 2-0 lead in a 7-game series does not mean a whole lot. The same way a 20-point lead, by the way, in the third quarter of NBA games doesn't mean a whole lot. Things can change very fast. Until you lose 4 games, you're still in it. Knicks have not played well in the series. They need to play better. The Celtics are, at some point, going to make a few threes. They are going to play better. They're too good. The Knicks are going to have to play better than they did in these first 2 games to win this series. So that should be what Knicks fans are concerned with right now. Try to get some better offense, get Towns going consistently, just play better basketball. If you do that, you'll figure out a way to win 2 out of these final 5 games.
Enjoy the next 2 days until the next game, because you just never know what's going to happen in the following tip-off.
No, you don't. You don't. I mean, look what the Thunder did to the Nuggets last night.
I know.
It was
I get
just
it.
an
That's
annihilation.
why
So-
I'm enjoying this so much, because you just
Yes.
really don't know.
And I will say that, folks, Knicks fans enjoy this. Be happy being up 2-0. Just don't count your chickens before they're hatched, because there is a long way to go before, I don't hear people talking about the Pacers or the Cavs or the finals. Worry about beating the Celtics 2 more times, because they're NBA champions for a reason. They're a really good team. They're going to scratch, fight, and claw their way to some wins in this series. So don't mess around. If you have the opportunity to win these games, win them. But play some better basketball, because you're going to have to.
Yep.
For Pearson Butler, it's good to see him alive and well. For Paul Dottino, I am John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants, from the podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Pearson, I love you. I don't want you to feel much better, though. I got to be honest with you. Sorry. See ya.